Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Thursday's Tea Time Live with the 17th of June, 2021. I think we've been doing this about 6 months now. So thank you to those of you who've been with me from the beginning and stuck with me. Thank you for those who are new as well. Welcome. So, like I say, this is Thursday Tea Time Live. I'm streaming live on YouTube and Instagram. Thank you all for joining me here live. And thank you also to you all who are catching up later on YouTube, IGTV. And this does also go on the podcast as well. So I know some of you pop me on to accompany you on drives, which is all very nice. Thank you very much for doing that. And I'd really appreciate a hit of the like button, comment below, say hi. And if you do have any questions, either that you want to ask me or that come up during the conversation today, then pop them in the comments. Equally, if you're catching up afterwards, still feel free to put something in the comments, maybe your thoughts about something we've been talking about, comments. And I will try and get back to as many comments as I possibly can. But if you're here live, then I will also be monitoring those as we go. If you're on YouTube, you can leave me a super chat or a super sticker. I'd be most grateful for that. And obviously, if you are a member on YouTube, you can use your custom reaction emojis, which I noticed Rachel did earlier on the post about the abandoned London interview with Katie Wignall, which I'll be coming on to talk about a little bit later. So what are we going to talk about this week? Well, we've got the anniversary of the Magna Carta, which we can talk about. Thomas Cromwell, his life started to unravel around about this time in 1540. As I say, we're going to talk about abandoned London. Can you all do me a favour and just stick me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay, if you're joining me live? That would be fabulous, just to make sure I've got all my microphones on, which I have been known to manage not to do in the past. So yeah, sorry, thank you for that. So we're talking about abandoned London and also what we've been talking about on Clubhouse. I always like to update you as to what we've been talking about on Clubhouse. Now everyone can join us on Clubhouse now. I've had people say, "Oh, I can't afford it at the moment," and things like that. It's a free platform. It's just that it's new, so it's a bit like if you'd got involved in Facebook from the very beginning. It's just new, but it's. I find it really exciting, as do the other historians and history bloggers on there with me, because it is different. And actually, I think a lot of the social media platforms, I know I'm on here talking to you now, but they're similar in the way you can post and people can leave comments, and it's there for people to catch up on later, which is fantastic. But what the way Clubhouse is different is it's all live. So those of you, and a lot of you have already joined us on Clubhouse for some of our discussions, and it is live and you can come up and you can chat to us. There's myself, Dr. Kat Marchant, Catherine Brooks and Sarah Morris. We've also now been joined by Phil Downing, he's been very brave and joined us girls on the History After Dark room that we do every Wednesday. History After Dark is hilarious. I'll tell you about it in a moment. Gail Hume from British Sovereigns and Royals is on there. Deb Royal from Tudor Times has joined us, and also Heather Darcy has started a new room in one of our clubs, which we're very grateful to her for, because she is doing one which is much it's about 3 o'clock in the morning our time, so it's much better for the US audience. I think that's on a Saturday morning, so it's really building. Rachel, welcome. Rachel has made it and she's using her custom emoji. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So if you are a YouTube member, you get little teacups that I made for you with emojis, well, emotions in them, so you can use them. So and Rachel has her Elizabeth picture next to her name as well to show she's a member. So we've got quite a bit to talk about today. And I will also let you know, morning, Colleen, welcome. Hi, everyone who's joining on Instagram. Thank you for tuning in. I what did I want to do before we get going? Yes, I want to just give good timing, a shout out to my most recent Patreon members, and Colleen has upgraded from kind supporter to the nobility tier. Welcome. And Linda and Deborah have recently joined on the royalty tier, and Elizabeth as a member of the upper class. And if you're interested, if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and you're interested to know, or you're curious to know what the benefits of being a patron of mine are, then I have put a link in the YouTube comments, and on Instagram you can just go onto my bio and follow the link there. And if you click on Patreon, it basically gives you you visit the page, and it gives you the details of all the different tiers and what the different benefits are of each of those tiers. Right, so I hope you're all settled in. I do call this Thursday tea time. We've had this discussion about tea before, haven't we? Tea, actually, if you live further north, well, I live in the Midlands, always have done, born and bred here, and tea is generally, we can use it as a word for our light evening meal, but in this case, it is literally a cup of tea. So wherever you are in the world, whether you're on your breakfast tea, your lunch tea break, or you're having a cup of chamomile before bed, welcome. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I will be literally supping from my tea as well. This isn't a stunt cup, because you'll find, if you haven't joined me before, I talk a lot, which is the point. Like I say, though, if you want to say hi in the comments, you want to ask me a question, or anything I say prompts a thought, please feel free to put it in. Hopefully Jack won't be joining us again this week. Any of you who were here last week had a bit of a oddball in the comments. I don't have to, obviously, actually respond to every comment, especially when it's as it was with Jack, who I dubbed Jack the Ripper by the end of it. So you're going to kind of get the gist of what was going on there. Okay, so let's talk about what's been going on. So let's start. Why don't we start with the discussions? Colleen's laughing at me. Well, should we? Let's just start with the discussions that we've been having on Clubhouse, and then come on to tell you what videos I've put live on YouTube as well. And I think all the videos on YouTube, bar the occasional one, will also be on the podcast. So whatever I'm talking about as a video, you will also be able to find on the podcast as well. And all of these things that I do, if you follow the link in my bio, you'll find the links to everything, rather than me try and explain. Because I know you. Thing is, my podcast is called British History, but if you just try and search British history as welcome, hi, down from Australia. You've joined. You must be on the chamomile. It's late down there. Hi, Barbara. Thank you for joining. Where was I? I don't know. Let's move on. So Clubhouse this week, we started. Sunday. When did I last see you? Obviously last Thursday. Friday, I can't remember what we did. Sunday, Deb Royal and myself did a session in the Travelling Tudor History room, which we do every Sunday at 4 p.m. London time. We went to Sudeley Castle, obviously virtually. And yes, we did Sudeley Castle. I'm getting mixed up. We did Sudeley Castle. Ludlow was the week before. And Sudeley, I've done a bit of a poll in YouTube. So if you're on the YouTube, I can't see the result at the moment, though. It's half giving me the result, which is a bit annoying. I think it's 50-50 at the moment, people who visited Sudeley and people who haven't. Sudeley Castle is in Gloucestershire. So welcome from Brazil. Hi. Is that Celia? Welcome. So Sudeley Castle is in Gloucestershire. Now, Gloucestershire is off the beaten track for most tourists, a lot of tourists. You know, it's not close to London. It's not brilliantly serviced by our trains, I have to say. Not if you want to start going out to places like castles and abbeys However, if you do make the journey and you do make the effort, then you will be rewarded by places like Sudley Castle. And I'll go on to talk about somewhere that's in the vicinity as well, that if you manage it to get that far, that I would also recommend you visit. Sudley Castle, for those of you who may have heard of it, but you're not sure why, it's the only, well, basically it's where Catherine Parr, Henry VIII's final wife, is buried, and she's the only, I think, British queen to be buried in a private chapel, and it's the chapel that's on site. I'm trying to think if it's called St. Peter's or St. Mary. I think it's St. Mary's. But it has a really long history. I mean, this castle goes back to just after the Norman Conquest. It came into the hands of Richard III at one point. It was it became royal property. So obviously Richard III had it, and then when Henry VII won at the Battle of Bosworth, it came into his hands. He granted it to his uncle Jasper Tudor. Jasper Tudor, his uncle, when he died, he had no heirs, and so all of his possessions reverted to, were given to his nephew, the King Henry VIII. And so Sudley Castle came into Henry VIII's hands, and it was still his in 1535 when he and Anne Boleyn stayed at Sudley during their summer 1535 progress. A happy time for Anne and Henry. And there's a video on, actually, I don't know if it's on my channel or Sarah's channel. Sarah and I, the Tudor Travel Guide, visited Sudley Castle last year, in between all this stuff that was going on. I think it was last year, wasn't it? God, it can't have even been the year before, can it? No, surely not. It must have been 2020. It's all a blur. And we sat and we chatted about that 1535 progress visit by Anne and Henry. So you can find that on YouTube. And not only was so while Henry and Anne were having this fun time, Cromwell was doing his work at the nearby Hales Abbey, which is the place I was alluding to earlier that I would recommend you go and visit if you do make it to Sudley. There was controversy there because a lot of we know that there was this full-scale dissolution of the monasteries in the end, and they all went. But that wasn't how it was playing out at the time. It wasn't a foregone conclusion from the beginning, or at least it wasn't dubbed as that. And some of the abbeys and monasteries were doing some stuff that warranted being investigated, right? And Hales Abbey, the monks at Hales Abbey, purported to have a vial of the blood of Jesus Christ, which on inspection turned out to be duck's blood and would be replenished. Anyway, so Thomas Cromwell was off doing his, the king's dirty business, while Anne and Henry were having a lovely time on their progress and staying at Sudley Castle. I think they stayed there for a week. I keep peering over because I can't quite see all the Instagram things. But hi, welcome to everyone who is joining us today. So Sudley, so big in the Henry VIII story. Catherine Parr. So then it goes into the hands, obviously, on Henry's death to Edward VI, and he grants it to his uncle Thomas Seymour. Thomas Seymour is there then with his new wife, Catherine Parr. Now, Catherine gives birth to their child at Sudley, a little girl who records lose. I think her name was Mary. Yes, in fact, because the queen reigning at the time would have been Mary. No, is that right? I'm getting all mixed up. Oh, anyway, that's not the point of the story. Unfortunately, Catherine dies shortly after childbirth, and that is how come she is buried at the chapel at Sudeley Castle. Now, there's a whole story. I've done a blog on this about what happened to Catherine's body. Basically, her tomb and her remains were left unbothered for centuries, and I can't remember which year it was, but it basically the tomb was discovered, opened, her body found to be really well preserved, but of course then this sealed coffin was unsealed and air gets in and the body starts to deteriorate. However, there are at Sudeley, I suppose you call them relics of Catherine, piece of her hair, I think there's a tooth, on display in the castle. I find that stuff a bit grim, but fascinating. But what I really love is that they have a letter. They've got a couple of things of Catherine's personal effects, and one is the letter that Catherine wrote to Thomas Seymour, this one that you might have heard of, where she said, you know, she would have married Thomas before all others had she been free to do so, i.e. if the king hadn't stepped in and said, lady, you're going to be my wife. And that letter in her hand is there on display. Colleen, what does Catherine's grave read? Queen, not Seymour. She was, did I say Seymour? Oh, because she was married to Seymour. I see what you mean. Yes. I don't know what the original one said, actually. Let me just see. Just visit the visitor's book here. If you have a look on my Instagram, everybody, I have shared some pictures of Sudeley after this discussion that we had on Clubhouse. It's supposed this wouldn't have been the original. I don't think. But there is a basically something that was scratched into the tomb. Here lie a Queen Catherine, wife of King Henry VIII, and last the wife of Thomas Lord of Sudeley, High Admiral of England, and uncle to King Edward VI, died 5th of September. I think that's just a description of what they found. I can't remember off the top of my head what that was all about. There's also a video I did from Sudeley with Claire Ridgway where I'll go into the chapel. So have a look for that one as well. And we did our best not to speak in the chapel. I'm not the best at not talking, as you might gather. Colleen, so fascinating. Just read about her in 6 Wives. I mean, Catherine Parr is a fascinating woman. They all are, actually. And why not? Why wouldn't they be? But of course, Catherine was the first published queen, or queen to have, so she had a book published. It was, you tell me and I'll tell you. Can't think. Anyway, have a look. I think I might have. No, I might not have shared that on Instagram. But that one of her books is on display there as well. So it's a lovely place to go. You are in the countryside, so you can kind of try and imagine what it would have been like to be Henry and Anne. Elizabeth visited there. This is, if any of you've seen, there's been an archaeological dig, and apparently they're doing it again. Deb was saying the other day, to look for the banqueting house that was built especially for Elizabeth's visit. And Lamentations of a Sinner. Thank you, Colleen. 2 books, yes. So I knew she was the first queen, so 2 books, brilliant. So it is. So you can kind of grasp just how, these places weren't built up. They had fun when they were there. They could get a bit of peace and quiet, I suppose. Mind you, maybe not with the retinues they took with them, but they were in the countryside. They lived there, hunting, hawking, that kind of thing. And as I've mentioned, Hales Abbey is nearby. This is the abbey that Thomas Cromwell was going and investigating while Henry and Anne were having their fun in 1535. And that is now a ruin, total ruin, but very, of course, picturesque as ruins tend to be. And so what I would recommend if you were wanting to go and see these places is that you would hire a car if you're coming from abroad, or get in touch with someone like myself who can take you round, because you really can't get around without a car, I would suggest, to these places. Most people in England don't bother with buses because we don't understand how are you supposed to know where the bus route goes and where to get off. I don't know why it's so hard, but it really is. Anyway, I said I was going to take a sip of my tea about 10 minutes ago. Oh, now I really need one. I can feel the pollen's up. I don't know if I feel a bit gruff today. Yeah. So we did Suda Castle. Now I'm not here this Sunday coming, but Sarah Morris, who's been on holiday, is back, and she'll be talking with Deb about Lees Priory and Leomani Towers. Leomani you might have seen because it's quite typically Tudor looking. It looks like it looks reticent of the front of Hampton Court Palace, or if you've ever seen pictures of St James's. With the towers much higher than Hampton Court, but of course Hampton Court was reduced in size at the front by the Victorians. I think I noticed Hampton Court guide was with us a few minutes ago. If you're still there, maybe you can tell us. I think two stories were taken down from the frontage of Hampton Court. But anyway, Leomani, I've got a reel on Instagram, so please do check that out of Leomani. I was there in an absolute downpour, so you'll be able to hear the rain on my umbrella. It was very atmospheric, but not brilliant for filming. But Leomani, you can't get in very often. So I was in the area, actually visiting Colchester, and I was just really lucky that I happened to be there on a day where it was open. So anyway, if you have a look on my Instagram reels, it's not very far down, I've got Leomani on there. But anyway, Deb and Sarah will be talking about Lees Priory and Leomani on Sunday at 4 in Clubhouse. Monday we were talking about Mary Queen of Scots because it was the anniversary of the Battle of Carberry Hill, and this is the last battle that Mary took place in. It really was kind of her last stand, and this is the one that after this Bothwell fled to the continent. There's a whole story about him. In fact, I've got a YouTube video on that. But Mary, this was the beginning of her. She was after this she was taken to Loch Leven Castle, the castle that's on an island in the middle of a loch, which looks very picturesque, but probably not where you want to go if you're a prisoner. She was pregnant by this point. She miscarried twins while she was in prison. This is where they forced her to abdicate in favour of her son, the baby James the Sixth of Scotland, who would become James the First of England on the death of Elizabeth. She escaped from there. She escaped into England, of course, believing that not only would Bothwell be, bringing up a force to help her get her throne back, but that Elizabeth, she would get support from Elizabeth, fellow queen, kinswoman, to help her go back to Scotland and reclaim her throne. Of course, we know that didn't happen. I don't know of any adaptation in terms of drama, film, which I think puts across adequately just how long Mary was incarcerated in England. I mean, it's nigh on 20 years. I think she was 24. She was 24 at the Battle of Carberry Hill, and then in her early 40s when she was executed. Just made me think, because I've spoken to you before about the Mary Queen of Scots film, the most recent one. And it doesn't come across in that either, just how long that period of time was. Now, I've spoken about Tutbury Castle before, which is one of the places that Mary was kept prisoner. I think she was there on 4 occasions, and the wonderful Leslie Smith is the curator there, and I will be visiting Leslie very soon. Can't wait. Catherine Brooks, the Tudor Tracker, and myself will be there within the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. Yes, I'm really looking forward to that. And then last night, so let me tell you about History After Dark, if you don't already know. Now, History After Dark is the one room a week that we do. It's myself, Cat Marchant, and Catherine Brooks. So Cat Marchant is Reading the Past channel on YouTube, really big channel. She's fantastic, and Catherine Brooks is the Tudor Tracker. Got a fantastic Instagram. She does some brilliant interviews as well, so you can check her out on YouTube. And so History After Dark is, and I gather, I know it's not dark at 8:15 on a Wednesday in the UK at the moment, but the gist of it is, this is a time where normal rules of decency and polite conversation do not apply. Don't come in if you're easily offended, or if you're eating your dinner, usually. Colleen, sorry, what time? Sunday, 4:00 London time on each Sunday is the Travelling Tudor Britain room. So whatever we're doing, it will be at that time. So History After Dark, though, is 8:15 on a Wednesday evening. Oh, sure, you were asking about Wednesday. So Wednesday is 8:15 London time, PM, and we could talk about all sorts. So sometimes it might be I don't know if anything's offensive. I don't think we're it's not, it's just stuff that we just don't worry about. You might hear, swear words. We might talk about something that's we were talking about medical cock-ups last night, so it was there was some some procedural details about some historic treatments that you, like I say, may not want to have been eating your dinner while we were speaking about them. But they were interesting and funny nonetheless. So medical cock-ups last night. So so Catherine was telling us about a procedure. I'm going to try and remember some. Catherine, so don't eat. Catherine was telling us about a procedure for cataracts. She described how a flat, wide needle would be inserted into the eye, and all I could think of was like somebody with a spoon. I was like, is that like a spoon in the eye, a flat, wide needle? But anyway, what else was there? There was the tragic and infuriating mismanagement of Princess Charlotte's birthing room. So when she gave birth to ended up being a stillborn boy, and this is George III's granddaughter, and this is the princess that she dies, and there's no, George III has all his has loads of children, but she was the only one of the next generation legitimate in the bloodline. And so then you get this race to have a legitimate child in all of George III's children. And that's where we end up with Victoria, who becomes obviously Queen Victoria just after her 18th birthday. But Princess Charlotte dies in childbirth, horrendously mismanaged. And Gail Hume was telling us about this last night. She was telling the story, and because she's royal, a normal midwife wouldn't do. Why would you want someone who actually knows what they're doing? They're too lowly born. We don't want someone like that in the room. We need doctors. We need to look like we're doing the right thing. Ooh, how much has been done over time in order to be looking like we're doing the right thing? And this is a prime example of this kind of attitude and approach. And poor Charlotte isn't allowed to eat for over 24 hours. She's in labour. And I know anyone who's gone through a labour, it's pretty difficult actually to eat while you're in labour, but she's not allowed to eat even if she wants for 24 hours. She is exhausted. There's some signs that the doctors didn't know to look out for, that maybe a midwife, I imagine a midwife, would have been able to look out for. Anyway, it's horrendously mismanaged, and she dies soon after the child is born, and therefore, so George III's granddaughter and the baby boy she was carrying wiped out. 2 generations, one go, and all legitimate heirs to the throne gone. As the, so you got what you had, just basically George III's children, who were all getting on at that point. Not the most popular. This is so George III. You've got then the Prince Regent, who becomes George IV, which we spoke about in one of our rooms about satire, because he was prime for satire. He's the guy who built Brighton Pavilion, and very larger than life in all ways, I think. So that was one. Queen Caroline of Brunswick, her hernia. Oh wait, do you know what? Maybe someone from Sweden is ringing me. Please don't. It'll be one of those odd calls. They'll say it's from Sweden, and then they'll try and sell me energy or something. So yeah, Queen. I think it was Queen Caroline of Brunswick. Her hernia. We won't even go there in the middle of the day. Anyway, it wasn't pleasant. But we had all these discussions last night. Some of them were what I will do actually in a bit is I screenshot some of the reactions of the team while we were doing these stories. So I'll share those on Instagram in a bit. Hilarious. So there you go. There's a flavour of our History After Dark room. Next week, we're going to be talking about the most hated people in history. And we want to hear yours as well. So we'll share ours and why. It's actually going to be quite personal, why we hate them. And, you know, from the safety of a number of years and the fact they've been long dead, please do come and share who you hate from history. And it is, History After Dark Room is truly a safe space. I know that term is used a lot at the moment, generally for places that may or may not be a safe space, but it is a safe space. We just want to have a normal conversation like normal people do. We don't have to agree on everything. In fact, sometimes it's much funnier when we don't. So there you go. There's History After Dark. I would recommend that you come and join us for that. Apparently someone had us on speakerphone in a pub garden last night. I found this out this morning, and the whole pub garden, luckily, was enjoying it. So that's quite funny to find out that our audience doubled just from everyone hearing in a pub garden. Quite funny. So let me tell you what other videos I've got available now, ready for you to go and peruse. I've actually got some longer form ones. You know, I was telling everyone, you all recently, that I've got these. A lot of my videos at the moment are quite short because they're like an introduction into something, or a look at a piece of history we think we know from a different angle, whatever it is I've picked up on and done the video about. So there was a short that I did, short on YouTube, for anyone who doesn't know the latest lingo, is a video that's below 60 seconds. And it was about whiskey, and the first time whiskey it comes up in accounts. Aqua Vitae, the water of life, which I'm sure all whiskey drinkers would agree with. Anyway, that's on there, available now. But I've actually this week got 2 longer form videos for you. One, both around half an hour. One is the one I was telling you I was about to record last week. I was speaking to Katie Wignall, who on not YouTube, sorry, on Instagram is at lookup_London. So if any of you already follow her, that's who I was speaking to. And she is the author of a new book called Abandoned London, which for those of you on the podcast, I'm sorry, I'm holding this up for people to see. And it is it's called a coffee table book, isn't it? It's absolutely full of pictures of abandoned sites in London. Now, some of these have been regenerated since, or as in either the building's been regenerated or the building itself has gone. So it's an excellent record anyway. So the interview, it really was a chat with Katie, is now available to view on YouTube. Like I say, it's about half an hour long. It's also on the podcast, so you can just listen to it if you like. And it's fascinating. I picked out some of my favourites. I had loads. Picking just a few. I think I asked her about 4. Finding just four to talk about was really difficult. And then I asked her what her favourite was as well. So if you're interested, not just, I mean, yes, it's about London, but I think it's an adult picture book. Yeah, it is. And yes, well, I'll get onto that in a minute. But it's so it's not just fascinating because you can see behind closed doors of some of the places that are now locked off. So there's some underground stations here that aren't, in this book, that aren't used anymore. So it's fascinating to see where you're not allowed to go now. But it's just such a good record as well of how human beings' interaction with the space around them literally alters the ground, the space, what it's used for. So you've got things in here like abandoned social clubs, because the industry that was next to these social clubs doesn't exist anymore. Factories have gone, so the social clubs have gone. And these were places that were once teeming with people going about their work and then socializing. Just think the conversations that were had, the energy in those places, and now they're left. And I mean, some as well, some of the workplaces, the desks are still there. It's like people have just got up and walked out one day. It's quite eerie, but fascinating. And it's that social side of it that fascinates me as well so much, that change in use of spaces as society changes. I mean, we're looking at it. We're staring it in the face right now, aren't we? With COVID, this kind of the city centres being so quiet, and now people being encouraged not to go back to work in the city centres, which I think would be a tragedy. But then maybe it's just human evolution. I don't know. That's probably a discussion for another day. But yes, so Doug said adult picture book. Right. So we did a room on Clubhouse with our sort of book recommendations, and I chose this one, but Kat Marchant also chose some what she called picture books. Now, I've just introduced you to our History After Dark type of mentality. So that led on to a topic for in a couple of weeks, talking about picture books and the history of pornography. So we're going to be looking into that in a few weeks' time as well. So there you go. That's the kind of stuff. It's interesting though. It's all human history, isn't it? It's all interesting. Otherwise, we wouldn't talk about it, and we wouldn't get such big audiences. So there you go. So my interview chat with Katie is available now on YouTube. That went live in the early hours of this morning here. And the other long form video that I've got for you is on the Magna Carta, because on the 15th of June, I really should know this, 1215, Magna Carta came into being. And I went down to Runnymede a couple of years ago on the anniversary of the sealing of Magna Carta. Runnymede is a meadow, a field. I would say meadow, actually, with a blinking road, busy road going through it. But anyway, it's on the side of the Thames. And like I say, it's where Magna Carta came into being. And in the video, I've gone into lots of different things about the Magna Carta, how it got its name. And it wasn't called Magna Carta in the beginning. There's a myth and a legend, as Dan Jones calls it, actually, that has grown up around Magna Carta, because it's more about what it represents than what it either said or the purpose for which it was created. There's actually quite a disconnect between those two things. But the myth and the legend of Magna Carta is important. That's why over 800 years later we're talking about it. And I've also talked about how it was revived or brought out the cupboard, if you like, at various times for various causes by various people. And I think that's one of the reasons it survived. So I don't think it's been this document that has forever since it was created being known about. I think it has gone away. You know, people generally wouldn't have thought much about it, and then it's come up in various times, of course, you know, most notably taken over to America, and I think the Constitution is basic. Americans know more about our Magna Carta than most people in the UK, I would say. Maybe someone will disagree with me, but that's generally what I find. And actually, until the anniversary, the 800-year anniversary in 2015, the only monument, the only anything that indicated at Runnymede that this was the place that Magna Carta was born, if you like, was an American Bar Association monument, memorial. I don't know what you'd call it, actually. I've got pictures of that on my Instagram as well, so please do go and have a look. And the field and the art installation that has since been put there, which is really good. Fiamentafa, what is a school prefect? Okay, a school prefect is basically someone who managed to get a badge. When I was at school, you got a badge for being a teacher's pet. And then you got to do things like guard the doors at lunch breaks so that other people, you could tell other people they weren't allowed in the school building. Anyone else find prefects useful? That was about as much. You just got a bit more power. I don't know if they still do that. Oh. So please do check out my Magna Carta video. Like I say, it's also on the podcast. All these videos are also on the podcast. So if you just want to I don't know, stick in your earphones and do the cleaning, or you're going for a drive, hopefully I can introduce you to something you didn't know before. Doug enforced the rules so the teachers could smoke. Yeah, basically prefects just take over from, I'm not saying now, but when I was at school, took over from teachers at lunchtime so they could have their break. And I've also got a couple of short videos for anyone who doesn't have half an hour to clean teacher's pet. Exactly. Anyone who doesn't have half an hour to spend with me as well as watching me do this, I've done one about the first recorded Viking raid of England. Now, anyone who Shelby says prefect, more like perfect. Exactly. Well, they thought, actually, I was a prefect, so I am also taking the mickey out of myself. Oh, goodness me. Yeah, so any of you who were here a couple of weeks ago, I spoke about a Viking raid on Worcester, but the first recorded Viking raid was on Lindisfarne. So Lindisfarne, have you heard of the Lindisfarne Gospels? It was basically a Lindisfarne Priory on a island called, I don't know if the island's called, the island, if you look on some maps, is called Holy Island. Some are some call it Lindisfarne itself. So, but either way, it was a priory setup, and I've gone into a little bit of the history of the priory. And although it's the Vikings' first raid on England, I've actually then gone on to talk a little bit more about the priory and how it survived, or how it was affected, how it survived. Oh, Colleen, my son loved the Viking video too. Ah, good, thank you. And hi, James, joining from Norwich. What was I talking about? Lindisfarne, yes. And of course, they all survived right up until Henry decided to, as we've already alluded or already spoken about in a different context today, the dissolution of the monasteries. Anyway, that one's only 3 or 4 minutes long, so hopefully I can teach you something in a short amount of time as well. And there's another video going live on 20th. Is that Saturday? What day are we today? Is that Sunday? Oh goodness. And that's about Thomas Cromwell, because we're in the period now in 1540, end of June, start of July. Thomas finds himself very much on the wrong side of the king. The king is not in his corner anymore, and he's arrested. His property is deceased. Oh, there's a clause in Magna Carta about property being deceased. Honestly, watch it. There's quite a lot in that video. I'm quite proud of it. But anyway, yeah, Thomas Cromwell's property is seized. Interestingly, before the Bill of Attainder, which allows for that seizure, but due process just gets in the way sometimes. I mean, a Bill of Attainder anyway was just a rubber. It's ridiculous. It was no need for judicial process. Let's just do what we want to do and put this air of authenticity over the top of it. Not authenticity. What's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, they did what they wanted anyway. And then Thomas, of course, ends up being executed at Tower Hill. So that video will come out on the 20th. If you are a member of my Patreon, then you already have access to that video. That's already up and ready for you to view. So just head over to patreon.com/British history, and you can also access it on your Patreon app. If you, like I said before, if you're interested in knowing what's the point of being one of my patrons, then in my bio on Instagram and in the comments section on YouTube, you can click the link and just go and have a little browse, find out why you would want to come and join me there. Now, tomorrow, so this is relevant to my patrons as well, I do a monthly live event, private event, if you like, for my patrons. And where I can, I'm going to do these on location. Last month, I was at the Tower of London, and we did we walked the route that Anne Boleyn would have taken. Well, as much as we could, but I also described it where I couldn't go literally in her footsteps, the route that Anne Boleyn would have taken on the day of her execution, the 19th of May. And I was actually there on the 19th of May. It all worked out very well. The sun came out, etc., etc. It was pretty cool. This month, I am going tomorrow to a historic location. I'm going to keep under wraps where, but for my patrons, I will be going live from there tomorrow. So this is what I'm going to try and do, is do as many on location lives as I can for my patrons. So any of you who aren't patrons, that's fine. Just have a look, keep an eye out on my Instagram, because I will be posting photos of where I'm going, possibly a sneaky little video as well, after my visit as well. So do have a look. Now, all of this stuff I've been talking about today, all the videos, all the clubhouses, all the photos, if you sign up to my newsletter, I basically send out a newsletter every Sunday with all these, a bit of a summary of what's been going on and the links to it, and also the links to this. So if you miss one of these and you want to catch up, the link to this will be on there as well. So you can do that. Now, has anyone got anything they wanted me to cover or anything they want me to answer before I wrap up for today? Thank you so much for so many of you joining me. Thank you, as usual, for those of you who join me on YouTube and IGTV. This is only the second, or Instagram, this is only the second week that I've gone live on Instagram instead of Facebook. I'm preferring it. I don't know about you. Hopefully you are as well. They're just so less technical difficulties on Instagram. So I'm quite happy to stick with Instagram. On YouTube, if you're on YouTube, I have a poll asking you if you've been to Sudeley Castle. Like I say, it's showing me like the corner of the poll, which is not very useful. I'm not sure what the so I'm so sorry, I'm not sure what the answer is at the moment. You can probably see better than I can. You can also find the link to my Patreon and to the newsletter to sign up. So if you want to sign up to that newsletter, it's free. And I only send out one a week, unless something very exciting is going on. On a Sunday, it comes out Sunday evening in the UK time with all the links to all the videos. And like I say, this, and if you want to sign up to that, YouTube, there's a link to that in the comments, and Instagram, you can hit my the link in my bio and you will see. It's called the list is called Hear About Tours First, because in a pre-COVID world I was doing tours, and hopefully definitely in a post-COVID world I will be doing tours, but most of the newsletters at the moment are actually about the videos. So occasionally what I'll do is put the tour information in those weekly newsletters as well, unless there's a launch, in which case you get to hear about the new tours before anyone else. If you're interested, you can take advantage of that. If you're not, it doesn't matter. It's just a little free email that pops into your inbox. So sign up to that if you would like. So for now, thank you so much for joining me this week. Like I say, patrons, look out tomorrow. I'll be going live from a currently secret historic location. Everyone else, look out on Instagram. I will be sharing some of the photos once I've left. Personal security and all that wouldn't do to be, especially with Jack the Ripper around. Anyone who was here last week or earlier would have heard me speak about some weirdo who came on last week and gave me a bit of tried to scare me. Didn't work. But either way, it's probably not a good idea for me to tell people where I'm going to be beforehand. So anyway, have a look out on my Instagram, and I will share photos from where I'm going tomorrow. Exciting. I'm really excited to be out on the road a bit more now. So that's all good. Everyone, have a brilliant rest of your day. And if I don't see you before, I would love you to join me next week again for Thursday tea time. But for now, take care. I'll see you soon. Bye. Bye, everyone.